Hey everyone, today we're going to be reviewing the movie Twister. Hey everyone, my name's Francis. I have 9 years of storm chasing experience. I've seen over 40 tornadoes in my life, and I've forecasted for all of them, and I've seen an EF5 tornado. I have a bachelor's degree at university, and I took meteorological courses. I'm a forecaster and I work for the Northern Tornadoes Project in Canada. And today we're going to go through Twister. We're going to make a review of all the weather related parts of the movie, and I'm going to tell you if it's realistic or not. So let's get into it.
You don't have a cellar basement, go to the center part of your house.
So this part here is actually quite realistic. You heard the forecaster on the TV say, go to the center part of your house or to your storm shelter. That's exactly what you're supposed to do during a tornado. If you don't have a basement or a storm shelter, you go to the centermost part of your house, and that'll offer the most protection against a tornado. And that lightning strike was well done. It split the tree in half, and that's basically what would happen.
Visible satellite pictures indicate thunderstorms developing along and ahead of the dry line. Temperatures over the state from mid-70s to low 80s.
Let's take a look. Cap's already starting to break.
Our models are forecasting lifted indices from -6 to -10.
You know, if these cells keep building like this, there could be a record outbreak of tornadoes.
This is going to be a long day.
So this is actually pretty realistic here, where they're saying the cap is breaking, so it's a typical... they're talking about a typical dry line storm setup in Oklahoma. Dry line is basically the clash of moist air from the Gulf of Mexico clash with the dry line. And this is exactly what they're talking about here, where the cap is breaking, so there's a lid, and then that'll prevent storms from going up. So this is a big day on tap here. So here I just want to comment briefly on the NSSL, the National Severe Storms Laboratory. This is a real place in Oklahoma, and it's part of, NOAA's National Weather Service. It's basically their severe storm experts, if you want, and they do field projects. So this movie, Twister, is actually based off a field project that was called Toto, and basically they were tasked to try and deploy little probes in the path of tornado to study them. So this movie, Twister, is actually based off researchers at the NSSL, and the probe itself is actually designed a prop for the movie. They made their own props, but it's based off the actual Toto, and I'll put some pictures here of what that looks like, the real ones, and they are on display at the Storm Prediction Center, so you can actually go and see them. Fortunately, the production from Twister didn't get the rights to use the design from the NSSL, so they made their own. Another fun fact, I guess, is the Toto project was a pretty big failure. Like, they weren't able to actually put a probe in the path of a tornado. So this movie is actually depicting storm chasers, but really scientists trying to advance our understanding of tornadoes by deploying probes in the path of tornadoes, and this is based on real life severe weather research. So this part here is a very famous part in the movie where, Bill Paxton takes the dirt, feels it, and it's just a classic moment in the movie Twister. But you can see, if we go back, the clouds here, you got like stratus, you got like, you don't really have any menacing clouds going on, so this would actually not be really realistic at this point. If you're expecting a storm to erupt in a tornado outbreak, this is not the kind of scene that you would be observing right before a supercell storm would erupt.
What's up? Going green. Greenwich. Saddle him up. You got it, boss.
So here the going green part is basically they're referring to the clouds obviously being green. So what happens here is that there's a lot of water particles loaded into the cloud or a large hail, and that's refracting the incoming solar radiation and causing it to have a bluish greenish color. So if we go back to this scene here, again, this is not the type of scene that you would see if you're expecting supercell storms. You would probably be in a sunny environment and then a single cumulus cloud would start bubbling up. This part is not really well portrayed, and it's not very realistic to what's about to happen.
It's the coloring there, isn't it?
Yeah, look at those Bomatis. Bet those tops have got to be spiking about 40,000.
That's a good thing.
It's a very good thing.
So this scene here is pretty realistic. They use well, it's realistic because they use actual footage. Bomatis here, it makes sense, which means that they're pretty far away from the storm still, and Bomatis happens, it's a pocket of warm air descending from the anvil of a cloud. 40,000 feet makes sense, and so basically they're looking at the bottom part of the anvil. So this part is pretty realistic. So this is basically the first tornado we see in the movie. It's obviously fake. It's not realistic at all. The motion of the tornado is realistic. It would be erratic like that, but there's no storm structure on this. It's basically a stratus deck, and then you have just a tornado coming out of it. So this basically almost never happens. There's no storm structure, and this is like a classic outbreak day in Oklahoma. So you would have like a big, massive storm, not a stratus deck like that. So this tornado is really unrealistic.
Fast! Coming towards you, Joe!
It's starting to turn.
Where?
So the way that they had the funnel here hit the tornado hit the barns and the debris exploding was really realistic. That's pretty much what would happen. Debris would get around the circulation, and the odd debris would start flying towards them. That's pretty realistic. So this part is really unrealistic. Like if a tornado is strong, and like the winds of a tornado is strong enough to lift a truck and also like rip all the things around you, there's no way these people would survive under that much of a gap. Because under that bridge, the wind would have intensified. It would have got shredded by debris. This is super unrealistic. And just a tornado to lift a car like that is a pretty strong tornado, so it's highly unlikely that you would survive it. And if anything, you wouldn't be able to grab on. You would get sucked up into the tornado and get lofted, and there's very, very small chance of survival in that situation. So here, it's a little bit complicated. I don't really know if they're going back on the same storm or if it's a different storm altogether. But the first part of this was pretty realistic. Blue skies, and then you saw the cumulonimbus, and then they pan into the darker shaded areas where the tornado is. So again, the issue here is that we have, there's a little bit more of a structure this time, but again, we have a tornado that looks just like almost looks like a smoke cloud just going through Oklahoma. There's no structure really. This would be a supercell, but there's no supercell features like a wall cloud or any kind of, there's not even any rain as far as I can see in this scene here. So this scene is pretty unrealistic.
That's deploying will be done. Miller. Shit, it's moving away! God, looks like they're gonna intercept.
So this part is fairly realistic. You know, tornadoes change track erratically, and this happens a lot where you're looking at radar like he's doing, and then he's like planning a course of intercept, but then the tornado just changes track. So this is pretty realistic when it comes down to storm chasing.
Lawrence, come in. We gotta get ahead of this storm. What's on the satellite?
So this scene here is obviously realistic because it's real footage. When it comes down to a supercell structure, it's not the greatest, but it's realistic.
F2, ladies and gentlemen, possibly F3, okay? Read me.
So here they have what they call an F2. So they rate tornadoes on the Fujita scale and goes from F0 to F5. So here it is an F2 tornado, but apparently it has no structure and there's low clouds around it, and even there's a little bit of a sky in there too. So again, this scene super unrealistic.
But he has. Supply station is high.
Bill, we're in the core.
So here there's a there's a few things wrong. Obviously, tornadoes don't do that. Like, they don't come in really fast and then stop moving. It's kind of like the producers said, "Oh, we'll limit these water spouts to the water bodies," but the tornadoes don't do that at all. Then she says we're in the core, but there's no rain, there's no hail. So before, you could see that they were kind of going into the what we call the bear's cage, which is the area of circulation where the inflow and the outflow would meet in the storm and cause rotation and wall clouds and tornadoes. So this area is super dangerous to be in, and you can see why. It's because there's probably a tornado there, but they don't depict that there would be a hail core somewhere in the image, and it just shows a big nimbostratic deck. So again, not realistic at all of what you would experience inside a core of a supercell.
Okay, we got sisters.
Oh my God. What? Yes? Julia, I can't talk to you right now.
We're right under the flanking line.
Okay, so here it's 100% unrealistic. You can see the funnel splits in two, and then he says, "Oh, they're sisters." That's not what a sister tornado is. Usually, a sister tornado will be from a different mesocyclone from the same storm, so you'll have two wall clouds, two tornadoes, and that's sisters. But here, what they're trying to depict, I think, is vortices inside a main circulation. So they would be called vortices. It's a concept that's known in this time here, so there's no reason for them to have done it like this. So it's 100% unreal.
Breathe, we both just gotta breathe.
Cal,
I gotta go, Julia.
All right, here we have the famous cow flying through a tornado movie Twister. So I have to comment on that. That's actually realistic. I've actually seen videos, real videos of animals and debris flying. So this part is actually pretty realistic.
maybe it's stalled.
No, I think Rabbit's right. It's gonna show its ugly face right over that hill. Joe, what do you think?
So here it's way more realistic. That looks menacing. That looks like a supercell storm, and what they're talking about is makes sense. So this part is pretty realistic. So this part here, the hail, now they're in the bear's cage I was talking about earlier, and this is what it looks like. You got hail, you got heavy wind, heavy rain coming down at you, and a tornado right in front of you, and it's spinning like crazy. You can see all the clouds spinning above you. So this part, they nailed it for the bear's cage. I wish they would have put some kind of wall cloud, lower clouds maybe, but so far it's pretty realistic for this scene here.
Where'd he go? Where is it? What's going on?
So this part here is pretty realistic. Again, I wish they had a bit more structure, but the cloud motion is a bit fast, I guess, but the way it dissipated with still the little vortex on the ground and then it dissipated in the middle, that's super realistic, and the way the clouds are moving too is realistic in the scene.
You're right, it's back building. We got a jumper here.
Bouncer, it's back building. You gotta track it.
Yeah, Joe, we know data's incomplete.
So this part, really realistic, probably one of the most realistic parts of the movie, when they say it's back building and you could see a huge wall cloud developing. So back building means that the storm is regaining strength and it's getting ready to drop another tornado. So this part here is also pretty realistic. So it depends where you are, but this is Oklahoma, right? So Oklahoma, you have these crazy, sometimes classic supercells, low precipitation supercells, and when it's at night, you can't see very well. So here they nailed it because, there's a storm coming, tornadoes coming, and there's very minimal wind. There's no rain, no hail. This is possible. This is actually pretty realistic. Although I would have liked to see the wind increase toward the tornado on the ground, but it's I'd say 80% realistic in this movie scene here. So here I have to comment on the damage. It's hard to say, but the premise of the movie is that this is an EF5 tornado with very strong winds, 300 miles an hour or more. This was a very weak building, sheet metal, so, and cars were flying around, so it's very unlikely that the building, any part of the building, would still be standing. Probably most of the building would have been destroyed, even just by not the tornado itself, but circulation around the tornado or inflow going into the tornado. So there would have probably been no structure standing here if the tornado was that close to them. So likely scenario here, I guess, if you want to get away with this scene being realistic, is that the tornado missed the theater and it kind of diverted, and these are just like the outer bands of the circulation that destroyed this building here.
They had no warning.
So this part was filmed in Waukeeta, Oklahoma, and I know because I used to go there every year, and there's a museum there. But this part about having no warning is realistic, and that's something that scientists are trying to, get better research on, trying to get better warning time. And the average warning time is about 13 minutes. So this part is pretty realistic here. So here I want to comment on the tornado. This is a massive tornado. This tornado is really well done. The what we call the collar cloud on the right here is moving inside into the tornado all the way down. So the motion of this, very well done. The debris is well done. The only thing that I'm kind of confused about this scene is that you saw the sunrise earlier. So this is the day after all the damage that we saw. So they make it seem like this tornado has been going on all night, or it was really early in the morning and somehow it's still going on. So I'm not sure if this is like another tornado, if it's the same tornado. So that always confused me in this scene here, but the tornado is really well done. This scene here is pretty well done. One of the main hazards of tornadoes is not the winds itself, it's the projectiles that they have. And here they display that very well. trees being tossed like it's twigs. This is pretty realistic here. So here, it's a common misconception. I understand what they did, and maybe they thought they were going to get away with it, but you can see the combines getting tossed forward from the tornado, and doesn't really make sense when you think about it, because the tornado is moving in a circular fashion, and then it's actually absorbing things into the circulation. It's sucking things, not blowing it away. So in this situation, the combine wouldn't blow away toward the camera, it would actually go toward the tornado. So here it's not really realistic the way they portrayed the damage blowing.
Oh my god! I think we're going in!
Yeah, so here a house being pretty much intact and then just rolling over. It's actually not that unrealistic. If the house wasn't properly anchored in the foundation, it could blow away like that, but more than likely it wouldn't have completely blown away. It would have been, pieces would have been, like the roof would have been gone, and then it would just have been destroyed to the concrete slab. So there's no way that it would have there's no way that a house would roll like that. So that's really unrealistic. So here they're basically trying to outrun the tornado, and this scene is not really realistic. Like with a tornado of that magnitude, its transitional velocities, it's going to be much higher than a human, running. But for the sake of the movie, let's keep going. So debris flying here, very well done. 2x4 is the most common missile damage that you would see into a house with a tornado of that magnitude. So the projectile damage, really well done. So here, the way that the barn gets shredded, really well done. Like I said before with the house, bits and pieces of the shingles and the roof would get destroyed first, and then the house would essentially get shredded. In this case, the barn gets shredded really easily, progressively, and not in a whole blown apart fashion. So this is really well done. So here, I guess I spoke a bit too fast here. This was fairly well done. Here you can see that parts of the roof get destroyed first. This is, again, pretty realistic of what would happen. But with a tornado of that size and wind speeds, the barn would get shredded way faster, and probably huge chunks of it would get destroyed, blown apart. The structure would fail really easily. Now we come to this part where they decide to essentially strap themselves with a belt or some kind of leather wrapping around a pipe that goes into the ground. So the concept is there where, well, the tornado won't lift us up because it's in the ground and it's tightly secured. This is absolutely garbage. This is the worst part of the movie, and I wish they didn't do this, but what they did right in this scene here is the roof gets blown off first, and then structural failure of the little barn happens gradually. As you saw here, the depiction of the building getting destroyed, spot on. Obviously, they would have been killed by the debris alone. So just the outer circulation of the tornado would have shredded their bodies, and their bodies would have actually been blown from left to right, up, down, in all kind of fashion, and they would have been tangled and basically would have been super gruesome, and they would have died almost instantly. Instead, what you can see is that their body gets lifted gently toward the middle of the tornado, and then what you see is the middle of the tornado and then clear sky in the middle. So that's total bogus. That's totally wrong. It would just be a wall of wind, debris, rain, garbage everywhere. There would never be, it's not like a hurricane where it's clear in the middle. So that's totally wrong, totally unrealistic. They would have died within seconds here. So I hate that they end the movie like this, but so here was pretty well done. The tornado moves away, spares the house, but the house is heavily damaged. That's totally realistic. And you see the debris around the tornado is really well done. And the tornado moves away or dissipates. I think it dissipates, and then there's still debris falling. This is really realistic. Debris gets lofted really high up in the tornado and supercell, and then it can end up really far away, sometimes tens of kilometers away. So this is really well done. The part that they didn't do well is the dissipation. A tornado of that side, it would not dissipate that quickly. There would be multiple different stages, like it would start roping out, what we call. So that little tornado we saw in the middle, that's kind of like what you would see, that the outer band of this tornado would dissipate gradually, and then you would see a smaller tornado, and that would gradually dissipate. So the way they did it here was not really realistic. So the part here where they come out of their shelter and it's blue skies, not really windy, that's pretty realistic actually. So from supercells down south, where they're very localized, you get a really intense storm for maybe 15 minutes, and then it impacts your community or your house, and it moves off, and then you have blue skies. So this is very realistic.
Wow, look at that. Didn't take the house.
So here it's total bogus. They would have never survived that. The scene, the environment is pretty realistic. The way that the trees are shredded, that's very accurate. The debris everywhere, again, the house being missed, it's not because the winds impact even, well, I mean, it depends on the strength of the tornado, but so far the scene is pretty realistic. Again, their clothes being intact and not even have a scratch on their face is totally unrealistic. They would have been shredded. So here you can see the pan out, and I don't remember the scene, but as they pan out you can see the debris field, and you can see that also in the crop, and you can see how wide the tornado was. So this is a fairly large tornado, and you can see the different little vortex erratic pattern in the crop. This is super realistic. You can see there was little smaller, more intense vortices inside the main circulation, and you can see that it looks like the tornado shifted and it narrowly missed the house and it hit the barn, and that's where it started dissipating. So it's one of those little vortex inside the main circulation that hit them. So you can see also that the roof of some kind of barn was exploded and fairly intact. on this behind the house here. So that's pretty realistic too. What happens is that sometimes you have, you know, what they call hurricane straps or some better fastenings holding the roof together, but then that roof, those beams are not secured to the actual foundation or the rest of the building very well, and so it's easy to fail. So then you get the whole roof getting blown off. And that's really realistic, especially in those EF2 tornadoes plus, and this one was an F5 tornado, the strongest one. So this part is very realistic, and I'm glad they included the damage path in this. So that concludes the video, the review of the movie Twister. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned a few things. If you have any questions, just put it in the comments. If you thought this was horrible, put it in the comments. If you want me to do another specific weather movie review, just put it in the comments as well. And I hope you enjoyed this. And this is kind of like a new thing we're doing on our channel. We're trying it out and see if there's any interest in movie review from experts. So we're hoping to do more in the future. So just let us know if you think this is a good way to go about and a good addition to our channel.